Welcome, everyone. This is where we host candid conversations with all the different leading voices in the business world about the digital user experience. We also get to meet and learn from different thought leaders around the world, from different companies. And today we're also bringing an awesome WalkMe voice to the table. So Maor Ezer is our Senior VP of Marketing, and he's going to be co-hosting with me today. Hi, Maor.
We're excited about it, Lia.
And today we have a great, awesome guest joining us. He's the host of RevAmp podcast, and he's also the VP of Marketing and Growth at DealHub, Gideon Thomas. Welcome, Gideon.
Hi guys, Lia and Maor. Pleasure to meet and speak with you both.
Yeah, me too. And just, to give a little intro, the main topic of conversation today is the digital experience, right? That's really this theme that we're really talking about. And it's this really incredible topic because everyone is having a digital experience right now, because we're all on the computer and we're figuring out how to use our apps more efficiently and how to do so many things for the first time, from home, whether it's healthcare or banking or grocery shopping. We're all really kind of new users in certain ways, things that we used to be able to choose. Are we going to do this online or are we going to do it in person? I think we're all kind of going through a personal digital transformation. And it's really interesting for me because I feel like it's kind of brought a certain B2B theme home. Now in a way I understand this big picture B2B digital transformation, kind of a reality check that I'm experiencing it on a personal level. So that's the overall theme. And I think everyone, whether you're a business leader or just a regular person that's inevitably now a digital consumer, can really relate to that. So that's the overarching theme. And Maor, if you want to kind of pick this up and start the chat, we can get started.
So Gideon, first of all, maybe introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit, what is the magic that is DealHub, and maybe what is a CPQ? I don't know if everyone knows this.
Pleasure to do so. So Gideon Thomas, as mentioned, the VP of Marketing Growth at DealHub. DealHub is a leader in the CPQ software space. What is CPQ, for those that don't already know? It's the ability to configure a price quotation. So any company that has a sales organization and that cares about revenue and most importantly, selling whatever your product or service is, will probably need a CPQ solution. And we work via integration with the leading CRMs like Salesforce CRM or Microsoft Dynamics CRM and Freshsales, amongst others, to basically amplify the sales process and help people to close deals more easily.
Yeah, makes sense. And in general, right, we were talking about this before, but your company has impacted a lot of great companies, right? You're working with leading brands. Do you want to share a little bit about your strategy and how you look at the world of CPQ? Because you have some really nice takes there.
Sure. So in terms of the world of CPQ, so the CPQ industry itself has been evaluated as being a $2 billion market segment. For a lot of companies, it's still a new area of business where they're preferring to kind of do it the old way using their Excel and their kind of home cooked recipe, and it might be quite a detailed and labor intensive process. And the preconception is that it's a big project and therefore hard to transition that into a kind of SaaS software model. Our reality is that we can absorb any layer of complexity that you might have and have you fully implemented in around 21 days. And that will obviously impact your organization and most of all your sales team. Those guys could be sending out a quote in as quick as 7 to 8 minutes with complete control from your point of view over the margins, and obviously helping you to execute better revenue during times like this where it's where every penny counts.
That's a big promise, 28 days.
28 days. Yeah, I mean, our fastest was a company just on the same street as yours, was done in 7 days. So there's some companies just around the corner from you that you would know and respect where we've absolutely broke the norm against the market average, which is 9 months.
So as COVID hit, it changed everything up, right? We were forced to be much more productive on one side, forced to go faster as an organization, but reduce cost and increase efficiency, right? Things that don't necessarily align, especially for larger organizations, right? Increase motivation, fast, 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 and deliver. So 2 fronts I want to talk about. And I'm going to start with the heavier one for a second. If we're talking about CPQ and pricing, from your experience and from your customers, do you feel that due to COVID and everything that's happened in the market, where companies are now shifting and focusing more on customer engagement and retention rather than new deals and stuff like that, do you feel that pricing strategies have changed and are delivering different value? Like, do companies change the way they think about value today and change the pricing model?
Sure, and actually to get a true answer for that, you'd need to look vertical by vertical rather than a one-size-fits-all answer. So as well as some verticals shrinking back, for example, like the travel industry, other industries have actually accelerated forward. So you want to take a well-balanced view of that, and you'll typically see that industries like software and technology seem to always be buoyant, even in downturns. There's always a lot of opportunity there to grow. And I think when you look at the key facets of doing pricing well, things that stand out as being important are things like workflow approval. So it's the ability to be timely, to be the first to respond, to make sure that you're not weighed down in your internal bureaucracy, and that you can say yes to things faster. So, you know, having that done in minutes rather than the next day is a huge advantage. It's also a huge advantage when it comes to motivating your internal team, because they want to feel like they're working with the best technologies that empower them to be all-stars at what they do. And they might be playing a higher volume game right now as they're selling remotely instead of in person. So absolutely enable your team, improve efficiency and productivity, and many other facets, but it all rolls up to one kind of central KPI, which is revenue, which is your ability to close more net new business, your ability to predict and project your upsells, cross-sells, expansions, all of your recurring business, and the way that you differentiate yourself in this market is through being fast to respond, to being highly accurate, to being on brand, of course, and to make it ultimately easier to make a decision. Like, imagine that people are buried in noise all of the time. Help make it easier for them to make a decision. Those stakeholders who are probably experiencing a heightened level of stress, a lot of information from all different angles, and they're trying to make good decisions faster. So actually, in some cases, you actually have a market that's more ready to say yes if we can get out of our own way.
All right. So I'm a big fan of pricing, I have to say. Personally, I've been involved in pricing at WalkMe for the past 3 years.
Yep.
And I think that setting the right value proposition and building the right pricing strategy is a game changer for any company, right? I'm sure you're going to agree with that. So let's look at from the other side for a second. Everybody's home. Everybody's working from home, right? What do you feel like your organization, how do you feel it's been impacted from work from home? More productive, less productive?
Yeah, to answer that, I mean, our productivity has increased by 30% since COVID-19 came in. So absolutely more efficient, more focused, higher sense of prioritization, and most of all, giving people a better sense of balance. So less time commuting to and from the office, of course, giving people the chance to spend more time with their kids at the right time of days has actually only increased productivity. You feel rejuvenated or re-inspired when you know why you're working so hard or so thoughtfully, because ultimately you do it for the ones around you, for your family, if you're lucky enough to have one, and all the rest of it. And just having that in front of you is like having your source of motivation or inspiration right in front of your nose.
That's I gotta say that's a great answer, and you're absolutely right. So let's dive in for a second. You're right in the cross path between marketing and sales. You're actually a marketing person, but your company caters to sales organizations, and
Right.
you know the sales, I'm sure, and the sales persona very well, and you feel their challenges, right? So one, how's that like? Do you feel like a salesperson? Do you feel like a marketing person?
So my background before I ever worked in tech was in community building. My second degree was in informal education, and I focused on on subsets of that, which is psychology, sociology, and all of those things. So how do I feel to be in this position? I feel like I completely understand and empathize with the role of the sales operations professional that would normally use our product. And we've taken an intentional decision during COVID-19 to actually restructure our positioning and the way that we market. And we've been hugely successful, right, over the last couple of years. And everything that we did before has now been changed and affected. And we pivoted pretty much on day 2 or day 3. And we've been equally successful, but in a different way. So really being tuned to the empathy of the situation, trying to lead people rather than manage people, trying to make sure that the face of our company was always a person and never the brand. Just the fundamental things, leading with empathy. Empathy obviously has its drill downs, in real terms. So for me, coming from my background, I use the 5 stages of grief as the structure for our content flow. So helping people with that kind of sense of disbelief, that might be kind of position 1. Position 2 might be that sense of isolation, etc., etc. Just leading them through that flow as a marketing person and helping to tell a story that connects with them and with zero push on the sell. Just really trying to empower the people they're really struggling right now and help give them a sense of purpose, direction, and tool and equip them.
So the right answer was marketing rocks, but no, I'm kidding.
Marketing rocks, and I think our responsibility is to is really to be tuned and to be empathetic, and the consequence of doing all of those things right is we reach 100% of our target with 50% of spend. So doing it differently completely works when you do it intentionally.
Yep.
I want to just respond to something that you said that I think is really relevant to so many people right now and so many companies, which is that when you're trying to think about how to prioritize in a transition or in a crisis or in a time when there's just some extreme change happening, especially when your budget is affected. I think the instinct, the first thing that we saw was companies were trying to figure out, let's make sure we're only buying what we absolutely need. And it was this fear that a tool that's just going to enhance a process that's going to happen anyway wouldn't be a priority. And I think that's something that both, WalkMe and DealHub can hear and be like, no, that's such a frustrating, kind of response. And I think you actually said something that really, I think just, is really relevant to so many different software companies, especially right now, and really any amazing product that can pivot during this time, which is that when there's less buying going on, you actually need to make sure that you have your edge. It's not, and that can make all the difference, because if you're going to be having the potential to close with less people, then every deal counts more. Every punch counts. So to not have the tools that you need to make sure that your salespeople and that your operations people and that your IT people have to really, really, really make those deals count can absolutely make or break, the quarter. At the end of the day, it's like, well, we don't need that tool because we can make it work without that tool. But if you're going to have, 5 deals on the table as opposed to 25, then you better make sure that your salespeople have the best resources in their toolbox for those 5 deals, because that's all you have, 5, and it's just it's such a mindset shift. I think very much so right now, and I actually heard this from Joe Atkinson, who's from PwC. He was actually speaking in one of our webinars, and they're really amazing, and their whole system is really incredible. And he really said that the employee becomes lower than the customer sometimes for business leaders. They're the last person that gets, thought of in terms of making sure that their user experience is top notch, when really right now specifically is the time for that to be reevaluated. Your employees are your most important customers. And he also said something that I just thought was so brilliant, aligned with what you were saying. If a customer doesn't use your product properly, you don't say to your customer, why didn't you use that right? You say, what did we do wrong that you didn't know how to use that? But when your employee doesn't use your tool right, You blame it on the employee. Oh, this employee is just not utilizing our tool well.
I see.
You know, and it's a mindset shift. No, how can we help them? There's this great tool. We know it's a great tool. You know, we invested in this tool. We believe in it, and they're not using it right. So where's the disconnect? It's not, you know, we trust them. We hired them. We trust the tool. We bought the tool. So what's missing, you know, instead of, oh, this employee is not performing well.
I've seen it played out statistically. So a lot of employees and people that will use your software, and respectively, we have the same experience with ours, is even though they're in different spaces, is that a lot of people, for example, will waste a lot of time on productivity. They will spend all of their time trying to teach themselves how to do things or do things manually. In our case, it's, you know, create a manual quote will take somebody easily for a good, well-branded one will take an hour and 20 minutes, whereas our software will cut it down to 7 minutes. That's a productivity issue, and that's also a defocus issue. So you talked about the pipeline being 5 deals instead of 25. That's probably for that 5 deals because you're spending most of your time running around on stuff which is not your core competency, you know, all of your admin, rather than doing what you do best, which might be I'm better at closing. And in your world at WalkMe, it might be you've got employees that are spending so much time trying to navigate a system like the CRM, for example, trying to get the best out of it. Maybe they just got hired a couple of months before COVID-19 or whatever else, or, you know, their manager is overstretched, overburdened, overstressed right now. And of course, you can simplify that so that people can do what they're best at. I think it's the same story in 2 different products, which is productivity leads to greater revenue when we get the lag time out of the way.
So to that point exactly, I just read a recent report from Gartner that says an average salesperson needs to go through 13 applications from prospecting to close 1. Wow. True?
And that will be qualified by the stage of maturity of the company. So typically you'll see that companies which are 0 to 300 employees will be acquiring products, softwares, I should say. Initially, some of them will be core technologies, and some of them will be productivity and efficiency softwares. And they'll be acquire, and we know that the popular kind of idea is that people only use 20% of any software that they actually purchase. So they're actually spending a lot and actually using a little. That's the kind of I don't know, throwaway comment that most people pass around. And then once they get to a certain level of maturity, they start to realize that they need to consolidate. They want technologies to work together. They want to get more out of it. We use the term horizontal connectivity, which is, you know, the ability to get things to work harmoniously across the natural flow or sales cycle or sales motion, whichever term you want to use. And then the mindset essentially becomes, once you mature, how can I get more out of it? How can I make it more intuitive? And then you start to get to how can I make the experience better for the person who's using this day in and day out? And eventually you get to the point of what the internal user experience is after you've thrown a lot of dollars at the situation in the early stages.
But you know, commerce is one of like the fundamentals of humanity, right? Every time you see a picture of like the old days or whatever, or like, you know, the Bible days, you always see them in the market, you know, selling something, right? I'll give you this, take this, here's a coin, you know, let's trade. I've got some coin, you've got some whatever, right? Did we ruin the entire process? Has digital taken the most simple thing in humanity, which is commerce, and made it into a complex process? Or did we add in all these stages and all these tools and technologies in order to create a much more vast and scalable and productive organization?
Right. So in that evolution story, it depends at which stage you take the snapshot. So in the middle stages, yes, of course, for many companies and people, technology made additional processes and made it heavier. And then in the latter stages, the ones who are truly evolving, you realize that technology is not the end goal, it's the tool to enable humanity. So the ability, you know, we're here using technology and bridging the gap of, you know, journey time or busy schedules in a way that we, you know, pre-COVID-19, we may not have found time to have this call or to have this conversation. So technology, when used well, whichever piece of tech we're talking about here, can bridge and facilitate humanity, which is more person time and building relationships in the right way. That's when technology is at its best, and there's all kinds of really innovative people that are helping to do that. That's definitely part of our story at DealHub, is we want to create a personalized selling experience between two people, not an impersonal experience where I'm throwing the same mud at everybody and expecting them to figure it out for themselves. No, that's not the way humanity works. We need to recognize what uniquely makes the other person unique, an individual, give them that signal or alert that we've recognized that, and then allow them to respond to that in a way which communicates that we're on the same page. So I'm a huge proponent of technology when used well.
I love that answer, right? At the end of the day, technology is driving humanity forward. That's the bottom line. Okay, so that applies to every single time we can ask that question, why did I just buy all these tools? It is part of a bigger picture, and it is part of what at least we at WalkMe claim we're trying to do is kind of bridge that gap between humans and technology. Because technology is driving us forward, and we're still, humans at the end of the day. We still need to do the stuff.
Right, Maor, there was a nice quote from Satya Nadella just a couple of months ago, pretty recently, the CEO of Microsoft, and he came out and said that he's seen more digital transformation in the last 2 months at that point in time than he would normally see in 2 years. He saw an increased appetite and desire and necessity to move forward decisions that would otherwise be delayed or procrastinated on, because now there was a compelling reason to, we know we needed to do this, but why not, there's no better time than the present, or we cannot afford not to do it in the present, is a better way of putting it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've read that quote as well, and we actually see it happening, right? Organizations are hit. If you look at the bigger organizations, they're hit with three main things that need to happen fast. One, and this is good news, and some of them are very good news for your company, right? One is the digital workforce. What is a digital workforce? They didn't think thoroughly about the whole digital employee and user, but employee experience, right? We want to work from home. I don't want to have this conversation pause because my internet doesn't work now because I took a good plan or a bad plan in my internet, right? It hurts the company productivity. So that was a small example, but the whole work from home and workforce agility. Then the second thing is the customer journey. So many companies have realized that they weren't ready. There was this great caricature, I think it was in the New Yorker, I'm not sure, where you see like a wrecking ball, and then you see like these few people talking about transfer in an office, and it says COVID-19, right? And just hit them. Think about the governments, all the government websites. They weren't equipped to handle all the volume of traffic. They weren't equipped to handle the diversity, right? What's called digital dexterity, right? Different people have different ways of reacting to technology and know-how. And then if you look at companies like Walmart, they grew 74% because they were there. They were ready for digital transformation, and they reacted to it. Whereas even the giants like Amazon and the JCPenney's and all these companies completely failed, right? Amazon less, but all the JCPenney's of the world, the Neiman Marcus and companies like that failed. So that's the customer experience. And on the third piece is this acceleration of digital transformation, as you said, and this rush from legacy software to cloud. Who wants legacy software where the employees are scattered all over the world? Users are scattered all over the world. It just, there's a race. If you started the conversation by saying, I have a customer that went live in 7 days, right? That's a game changer for companies. And this rush to the cloud, that's what's keeping, those three things are keeping everybody awake at night and thinking, how do we solve this, right? A massive digital transformation acceleration.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd love to segue into that. So actually, there's some data research from the 2008 economic crash, the economic downturn that happened back there, and I made sure I read that right at the outset of COVID-19 of how technology companies reacted and responded to that situation. And what was interesting as a takeaway was while many were cutting budget and workforce and such, the ones who doubled down and expanded their marketing budget and expanded particularly their branding budget were the ones that came out absolutely, as we call it, kind of head and shoulders in front when the downturn lifted, and the ones who didn't essentially withered away and died. So I adopt that mindset, and I would encourage other kind of leaders and technology leaders to adopt that mindset too, which is this is a unique opportunity. And if you can quickly pivot and think about what the new opportunity is and how you can execute on that, then I'm literally expanding my technology stack during this time. I'm expanding my headcount of our team, our technology stack. Our mindset is expansion because it's a unique opportunity where people, our competitors, are willing to give away some of the market share right now. They're not willing to be that forward thinking. I don't know how you can afford not to be.
Again, I think it's speed, right? We need to go fast, but there's still, the reality is a lot of organizations need to keep the money close. They need to build. Look, COVID-19 is not going away in a month. This is an economic downturn. Even if we do find a vaccine, and even if it disappears from the world magically and hopefully, there's still going to be the entire economy that's behind it. And I think I agree that people should have. I don't know if double down would be my for this, but kept on going at full speed, but figured out how to cut some costs and be more efficient, right? Look to efficiency, because it's easier said than done, right? Not every company can just double down on expenses and say, we're going faster now. You have to my question, my first question about the pricing and value, you have to almost rethink the value proposition and strategy before doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I should better qualify then. So when I think about keeping money close, I think it's about keeping revenue close. And in terms of cost, expenses, and all of those things, there's usually a business justification for anything. So if you can create the dotted line where you can invest 2 and get back 8 or whatever it is, I think have an expansive mindset, not necessarily double your spend. Just have an expansive mindset that is forward thinking, that is seeing the opportunity. The productivity is all around you. The opportunities are all around you, whether it's within the stack that you already have or whether it's the new bits that you need to add. As you know, a lot of companies right now are open to doing new business. So there's tons of great deals to be had at the table, and people that want to work together in new and dynamic ways. So tactless, as we say in Israel, have an expansive mindset. Whether or not that includes spending more money or not, that's your personal choice, but definitely seize the opportunity to grow.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting, it's also a very good time to make sure that the investments you've already made are being well utilized, and that maybe if in the past, deals were rolling in and it was not such a big deal. Okay, so we have, 10 extra users really than we need on this one tool, but whatever, it's nice that they can use it every once in a while. Now might be the time for that big picture assessment. Well, what really is being used and is it really necessary? Because now is certainly not the time to be paying for software and renewing software. That's a waste. But you want to make sure, I think, that you're not, wouldn't it be a shame if you realized you didn't buy that amazing new tool that really you need because it's not the time to buy new tools, but you're actually, without even knowing it, renewing a tool that's completely not helping your organization at all, and everyone's barely touching it. It's like you can't choose to not buy new things, but not actually utilize this time to invest in checking out what you already have. I think that was a point that Brian G. Burns made in terms of sales specifically, that now is the time actually that salespeople and the sales org for your organization can really hone the art of selling. You have a more challenging kind of, situation in front of you right now. So what are you going to do with it? Well, you better hope that by the time this, ends, which it doesn't look like it's ending, but the time that we at least start to feel that we're not in crisis anymore, which I think we're in a bit of that transition. This is starting to feel normal. even though it's going back. It's starting to feel normal. So as you're emerging from crisis mode, you want to hope that your sales org, I mean, all of your organization, but especially your salespeople, come out better. You know, like this time of challenge is definitely a time for us to all get better at our jobs. And I think like tool-wise, this is the time to do it. If you're not going to be just buying things kind of, you know, mindlessly, then this is definitely the time to make sure that you have the right things and figure out how you're using them.
When you were speaking in the early part of your thought structure there, it completely reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite movies, a movie called Any Given Sunday. Al Pacino, right at the end, he's in the locker room. I think it would be the end of the third quarter, before the beginning of the fourth, and they're trailing, and he kind of gives a statement which is true about the game, but it's also true about life. And he says, life is, we're surrounded in life by inches. They're all around us, and our job here as professionals is to gather them up. You know, that couple of inches of productivity, that couple of inches in terms of response times, whatever it may be in your specific scenario, our responsibility is to gather up all of those inches, which are essentially opportunities for better, more effective organizations, and do a better job now of turning the situation in our favor.
Very well. I think we should end with that sentence.
Yeah. I agree. Wait, one more question. And you touched on this, Gideon, but, you know, I want to just hear your direct answer because I'm curious. You know, at WalkMe, we talk a lot about bridging the gap. So what do you think the gap is? What is the gap that needs to be bridged? And how do you think we're going to bridge it?
To clarify, how are WalkMe going to bridge the gap, or DealHub,
humanity.
Or humanity?
How are we people going to bridge the gap? And what is the
How
gap?
is humanity going to bridge the gap between technology and like what we talked about and why it's driving the whole humanity forward, and the actual user and employee who needs to sit there and consume all this technology to be productive?
Okay. So my understanding, from my perspective at DealHub, of how we can bridge the gap between technology and humanity and the way that it affects us in our daily lives is this. And I'm largely speaking out of my experience coming from the company that I do and the product that I'm very competent at and skilled with. And I'll start with that. So I see the gap being, first of all, we want less siloed, we want less logins to less technologies. We want to have one centralized hub or area of work, as employees and as users of those technologies. We want to have an intelligent way of working which remembers our default settings or norms or our own preferences as employees, and it speaks to us individually. So we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from what we know or our default position. I think we want to have a workflow which is fast, not labor intensive, not soul sucking or discouraging. You'll mainly find that, for example, in the sales world, a lot of those people are great people persons. So to give them a job function that resembles being a librarian, an admin in a library, is not the best fit for who they are. So if you want to get better retention, if you want to get a better productivity, if you want to have people who are evangelists for your brands, then don't, obviously make sure that your technology fit enables and speaks to all of that. And then lastly, technology has to eventually reduce barriers. I mean, basically, if there's a barrier between two people that don't know each other, then how can we reduce that? It has to be the enabler. And there's multifacets of how that can be played out. It can be the way that we introduce ourselves, the way that we validate ourselves in terms of our credibility and our professionalism, so that we know that we're speaking to people that understand our context, of course. That helps a lot because there's so much noise out there right now. And it can be the ability to give the right information to people. So if you're asking a specific question, Lia, I should make sure that I give an answer that's respectful of that and not just sell on you, or in psychology we call it banking, where we bank information regardless of what people actually need to know. So all of that, and then get back to two people being able to kind of see each other, whether that be through our ability to use kind of like a chat, something that's chat and that's real-time responsive that allows us to keep the conversation going despite that we have a fractured day, which means I just go to bath the kids, but I can pick it up in 2 minutes and you know that I've seen your message and you don't need to worry, I'll pick it up when I get there. Or whether it be the ability to jump on a video call like this faster and more responsively to move things forward, whatever it is that leads us back to being two human beings, because we need each other. All of us in the room need each other to continue what we're doing. There's no future for any of us that doesn't involve other human beings being at the end of what we do together. And then lastly, we probably could have said it earlier, but breaking down the internal line of business silos between departments that on face value don't seem to get that, even though we all have the same aim. So the company aim is largely the same, and line of businesses sometimes have different ways of getting to that aim. And again, technology needs to make it easier for people to relax their guards, to align on the common ground, and to have a good flow between teams, so that we ultimately have one journey, internally and externally, and one source of truth for that. Is that a good starting point for the answer? Is there something you wanted to add?
No, it's great. Thank you. It's a great perspective. I think if I was to just summarize everything you said, it sounds like bridging the gap looks like making sure that technology is enhancing our life experience. Making life better, more personable, more enjoyable, more connecting, all of the things that make life worth living. Technology should be enhancing those things as opposed to taking us away from those things.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I have to say this has been amazing. Great conversation. It's really interesting getting to know you, getting to know DealHub, and kind of hearing very, very inspirational. So thank you very much for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure, and I hope this isn't the last time we do something together. I've really enjoyed learning with you and from you, and hearing more about your success story. And I'm wishing you guys even more success in the near future, and seeing how you guys do. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, and look forward to staying in touch.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.